You can make a simple serum by combining distilled water with a preservative, of course. And then in another container, you want to combine glycerin with xanthan gum, and then pour the glycerin and xanthan gum slurry into your distilled water and preservative and mix, and it will instantly turn into a gel. Of course, the more xanthan gum you use, the thicker it'll be. The less xanthan gum you use, the thinner it'll be. But where are all the lovely actives, the botanical extracts, and why in the world does the serum feel so sticky on my skin? I'll be answering all these questions along with how to thicken and gel your serum, how to make them feel less sticky and tacky on the skin, and just talking a little bit about all the other additives, botanical extracts, and all those ingredients you can add to your serum. Hey, what's up? My name is Tara, and here on my channel, I formulate skincare products. Today is a super exciting video because it is a collab with Joseph's Lab. A lot of you guys are constantly asking if I can help create custom formulas or look over formulas and revise them for you or do one-on-one consultations, but unfortunately those aren't the types of services I offer, but Joseph's Lab does. So head on over to josephslab.com if you would like one-on-one consultations, formulation revision services, or if you would like help with creating an entire custom formula. Joseph's Lab also sells some stock formulas as well. So if you just want to purchase a formula and not have to go through the whole headache of creating it yourself, you can find those on josephslab.com. You can also follow Joseph's Lab over on Instagram. They share all kinds of formulating content over there, and also Patreon. Joseph's Lab is on Patreon. There are all kinds of different tiers and content over there. So go over there, check it out, and support Joseph's Lab. Since this is a collab between me and Joseph's Lab will be posting some serum content as well over on their Patreon. They'll be sharing 2 serum formulas along with a hair serum formula, and they'll be talking more about how to combine different gelling agents and how to get just a better texture and feel from your serum. So make sure you go over to Joseph's Lab's Patreon as well to see the content that they created to go along with my video. You guys are just going to be getting an overload of serum formulating information, so I hope you're ready. Let's get into it. What is a serum? A serum is a water-based skincare product that has a gel consistency or a lightweight lotion-like consistency. Serums can help clear blemishes, fade dark spots, firm the skin, reduce fine lines, exfoliate, brighten, hydrate, soothe, and so much more. Typically, serums contain actives or are formulated to target specific skin types or skin concerns. Examples of actives in serums are niacinamide, panthenol, alpha hydroxy acids, glycolic acid, and lactic acid, BHAs like salicylic acid, vitamin C, and the list can go on and on. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you guys how to make a serum with every single one of these actives, but I will link down below to all the serum formulas I've done in the past, which a lot of these will include actives that I just mentioned. I also have an entire video dedicated to niacinamide itself, so if you just want educated on the topic of how to formulate with niacinamide, I got that. Overall, the main point I want to get across in this video is how to make the base of your serum, essentially the liquidy, gel parts. So then from there, you can add in all of those extra additives and actives like botanicals and stuff from there. The most important part is getting a base consistency that you like that feels good on the skin. And it's important to figure out the base before you start adding in all those expensive ingredients. Serum versus facial oil. A common mistake I see all the time are people calling face oils serums. Serums are water-based and face oils are oil-based. A serum is not a face oil and a face oil is not a serum, although you can add oil-soluble ingredients into a serum. And I'll be sure to touch on that topic in this video. Disclaimer, before we get into this next section, please make sure you've watched my entire Formulating for Beginners series. There's gonna be so many topics I touch on in this video that's not gonna make any sense to you. Like, why did I write this entire formula in percents? How do you transfer a formula in percents into a recipe you can weigh out? How do I even weigh out these ingredients? All of these questions have been answered on my channel before, specifically in my Formulating for Beginners series. So I don't want to go over this entire topic again to waste more of your guys' time. So please, if you actually want to learn how to make face serums, the first part is to understand how to write a formula, which is in an entire other video. So I'll link down below to my Formulating for Beginners series, and you can watch that entire series. And if you are serious about making skincare products, I promise it's so worth the time. These are all the topics that I have talked about in my series. So it is a heavy series that is amazing if you want to learn how to formulate. So please watch that. The entire series will teach you everything you need to know about formulating, and it's free. Where are you going to find that? How to thicken / gel serums. There are so many different ingredients you could use to thicken / gel your serum. These ingredients are known as polymers. There are natural polymers and there are synthetic polymers. Personally, I find that synthetic polymers make for better serums. Synthetic polymers feel more water-like. Like it feels like when you're putting it on, it's just water getting absorbed into your skin and there's no sticky and tackiness. Typically, in my opinion, I find with the natural polymers, they will add more of a residue on your skin as opposed to the synthetic polymers are just seamless. Also, with some of the synthetic polymers, some of them also work as emulsifiers. So when you use a specific synthetic polymer, you can actually add in an oil as well. So you can get the benefits from that specific oil soluble ingredient in your water-based serum. So in my opinion, that's why I like synthetic polymers more in a serum. They make the serum overall feel more like a professional grade serum. Natural polymers. Keep in mind, none of these natural polymers are emulsifiers. Xanthan gum. Inky name, xanthan gum. Suggested usage rate 0.1 to 2%. I'm mentioning this one first because I think it's the most commonly used polymer, and it's probably one that you already have in your collection already. It's also the cheapest and the easiest to find. There are different types of xanthan gum though, and depending on the xanthan gum you choose will highly impact your serum. First, there's what I like to call grocery store xanthan gum or like Amazon xanthan gum. It's the xanthan gum you find at the grocery store or on Amazon, and this xanthan gum looks more opaque. It won't create a clear gel at all compared to other xanthan gums, and it also creates a more stringy and tacky gel. Don't even try this one. Don't even buy it. It's not worth the time. What you want to use is xanthan gum soft or xanthan gum clear. I've compared both of these, and in my opinion, xanthan gum soft is better. It ends up being just as clear as xanthan gum clear, but the sensory feel is better. It's less sticky, it's less tacky. That's the one I recommend you using. So if you already have it, yeah, you can use xanthan gum soft to thicken and gel your serum. And go ahead and try it. You might like it. I've talked to people who don't mind using it as a gelling agent in their serum. They say it feels fine on their skin. Personally, I find it to be sticky and tacky, but give it a go and see what you think. Let me know down in the comments also what you think. Do you like to use xanthan gum as your gelling agent in serums? Let me know. So in order to use xanthan gum to gel your serum, you first have to mix it with xanthan gum or propanediol or propylene glycol, some kind of solvent. All of those are liquid humectants, and those all work great to disperse xanthan gum into your water. TaraGum, inky name, I'm not even gonna try to say that word. Suggested usage rate, 0.5 to 2%. You don't need to mix TaraGum with glycerin first. You can just sprinkle it right on top of the water, mix it in, and let it sit for like 5 to 10 minutes. It takes a little bit for it to gel, but eventually it will fully thicken. I've compared TaraGum to xanthan gum, and it does thicken more than xanthan gum, but it creates cloudy gel solutions, and it creates a lot of pilling. If you put it on your skin, instantly it'll just start pilling up. It's like really bad. So honestly, I don't recommend using TaraGum to gel your serums, but you can try it and see what you think. Here's another natural gelling agent you could use. I don't personally own it. Here's the suggested usage rate. And you know what? I'm not even gonna talk more about this ingredient. You can read all about it here, and I'm gonna move on because I don't have anything personally to add about this ingredient. Here's another gelling agent. Guar gum. Again, pause if you want to read more about it. I don't use this personally, so I don't have anything to really add. Next gum is Soligum AX. This inky name is a Acai Senegal gum. I don't know how to say that. And xanthan gum. So it's xanthan gum blended with another gelling agent. Jenna of Reviga Cosmetics actually told me to try this one out, so that's why I tried it out. And when I went to go make this video, it was the first time I've ever tried it, and I actually like it way more than xanthan gum. Jenna was right. She told me to try it. She was right all along. Its suggested usage rate is 0.1 to 3%, and it's active in a pH between 3 to 12, so it's active in basically any pH level. And I really like this. It creates nice gels. And I recommend trying this if you want a natural gelling agent. I think this is the best one I've ever tried. And this is probably my #1 natural gelling agent. So this is the one I recommend. You do need to mix it with glycerin, propanediol, or propylene glycol first. You use it the same way you would use xanthan gum. Hyaluronic acid. So technically this isn't considered a polymer, but it can thicken and gel your serum. You're probably familiar with this ingredient. It's basically almost in every single product because hyaluronic acid is an amazing humectant that helps hydrate the skin. But there are many different versions of hyaluronic acid and not all of them will gel your serum. You can buy hyaluronic acid in a powder or a liquid form. If you're buying it in liquid form, this is a hyaluronic acid stock and it means it's powder hyaluronic acid that's already been pre-dissolved in the water. The water hyaluronic acid will not gel your serum. The type of hyaluronic acid that will gel your serum are powder hyaluronic acids. But again, not every single powder hyaluronic acid will work, only specific ones. So here is a list of all the different powdered hyaluronic acids. The higher amount of Daltons, the thicker the hyaluronic acid will make the water. So if you use hyaluronic acid high molecular weight, 1.0 to 1.5 million Daltons, it will thicken and gel your serum. If you use any other powdered hyaluronic acid, it won't thicken it as much. So if you want a gorgeous like thickened consistency, use the high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. You could probably also get away with the low molecular weight, but I've never tried that one, so I don't know. I like to use the high molecular weight hyaluronic acid at 1%. So how I like to make a basic hyaluronic acid serum is I first weigh out my distilled water and my preservative in one container, and then in another container, I'll combine the hyaluronic acid with either glycerin, propanediol, or propylene glycol, and then pour the hyaluronic acid slurry into the water and preservative, mix while I pour it, and it will thicken into a gel. You use the hyaluronic acid powder the exact same way you would use xanthan gum. So it's really simple to use. And then you have a simple 1% hyaluronic acid serum in the end. And again, if you use less than 1% high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, it will be thinner. What I like to do is pair 0.5% high molecular weight with 0.5 ultra low molecular weight hyaluronic acid. And I think that creates the perfect consistency for a serum. And you also get the extra benefits of the ultra low molecular weight hyaluronic acid. Synthetic polymers. In my opinion, synthetic polymers are the best polymers for serums. And also with some of the synthetic polymers, you're able to integrate oils in as well because they work as emulsifiers. Something to keep in mind when you work with synthetic polymers is that they won't always work with every single ingredient. Some specific ingredients can thin out these polymers. It really depends on the overall formula, but here are a few ingredients that might cause you some issues. It doesn't mean that it will, but it might. So high amounts of aloe vera, hydrolyzed proteins, sodium PCA, sodium lactate, and cationic surfactants all can cause issues with polymers. Sometimes, just depends. I've used aloe vera with Cepimax Zen with no problem, but I do know that aloe vera with sodium carbomer can cause issues. So overall, you really just need to experiment with these polymers, do small test batches, and add one ingredient at a time and see how it reacts. Gotta do experiments. That's the most important part about formulating, so don't be scared to fail. Your serum might thin out here and there, but with time, you'll figure it out with experiments. Just do small batches. Cepimax Zen, inky name, polyacrylate cross polymer 6. I don't know if I said that right. Its suggested usage rate is 0.15% to 5%. It's stable in a pH between 2 to 8. And Cepimax Zen can be used in so many different ways. It can thicken and gel water. It can emulsify oil and water together. It's used to make cream gels. And it can thicken cleansing products like body washes, face washes. It's actually one of my favorite ingredients to use, and it's one that I always have in my collection. So to make a gel, what you have to do is sprinkle the Cepimax Zen on top of your water phase and let it sit for a few hours to 8 hours. You wanna make sure you cover it with plastic wrap and make sure you have a preservative in that water phase as well. I usually let mine sit overnight, and by the next day, it will have like a gel layer on top. And what you do is just mix it all together, and it'll be a gorgeous, smooth, clear gel. Like, it's one of the most gorgeous gels you'll ever see. And you can leave the product here, Or if you have oils that you want to add into your product, this is when you can add in the oils and they will mix in perfectly. And then you'll end up with kind of like a milky like consistency because you got like a little bit of an emulsion going. So that's why it turns milky or opaque. Cepanove EMT10. Inky name, not going to try to say it. Suggested usage rate 0.5 to 5%, and it's stable in a pH between 3 to 10. It can emulsify oil and water together. So to make a gel, you want to add in all your water-soluble ingredients and oil-soluble ingredients. You can actually add everything together in one container, sprinkle the Cepanove EMT10 on top, and mix with an immersion blender, and there you go. You have your serum. Flex AVC. Inky name, not going to try to say that. Suggested usage rate 0.5 to 2%. It's stable in a pH between 4 to 9, and it is sensitive to electrolytes. So ingredients like aloe, hydrolyzed proteins, sodium lactate, sodium PCA, etc., those might thin it out. And to make a gel with Flex AVC, all you got to do is add all your water-soluble ingredients together. Don't add any oil-soluble ingredients, only water-soluble. Sprinkle the Flex AVC on top, mix with immersion blender, bam, you got a serum. And no, you can't add any oil because this won't emulsify the oil and water together. Sodium carbomer. Inky name, sodium carbomer. Suggested usage rate, 0.2 to 0.5. It's stable in a pH between 5 to 10, and it is sensitive to electrolytes, so ingredients like aloe, hydrolyzed protein, sodium lactate, sodium PCA, etc. will thin it out. So sodium carbomer is pre-neutralized carbomer, meaning that I don't need to adjust the pH to 6. Typically, when you use other carbomers, I've never used any other type of carbomer, but other types of carbomer, when you sprinkle it in a solution and dissolve it, you have to raise the pH to 6 to get it to gel and then adjust the pH from there. But with sodium carbomer, you sprinkle it in and it automatically changes the pH to 6, so you don't have to do it. That's why I prefer using sodium carbomer. The issue with sodium carbomer is that it does chunk up a bit, because what you want to do is mix your solution and sprinkle the sodium carbomer in a little bit at a time and mix as you do this, and that will prevent clumping. But I always get clumping no matter what, so I always just end up pouring it all in at once and then mix it and just wait for the clumps to dissolve. But I recommend adding it in slowly and mix while you add it. And then you'll have a gorgeous gel clear serum consistency. And again, if you get clumps, just mix it periodically and let it sit for a while, and the clumps will eventually go away. Unlike xanthan gum, the clumps in sodium carbomer always go away for me. The list can go on and on. I'm sure there's so many other gelling agents out there, but those are the ones that I'm familiar with. And let me know down below, what's your favorite polymer to use? I'm interested to know. Ingredients to add into your serum. So let's just quickly talk about all the other ingredients you can add into your serum. We got hydrosols. It's important to always use distilled water as your diluent in your product, but if you want to add in a hydrosol for like some fragrance, you can do that instead of distilled water, or you can just use parts of the percentage of distilled water as hydrosol, like maybe 20% of it, make it rose water, and you'll get like a gorgeous rose scent in your end product. You could also replace the distilled water with aloe vera juice or aloe vera liquid, whatever you want to do. Just make sure if you are using just water, it's distilled water. And keep in mind that if you do replace like distilled water with hydrosols or aloe vera liquid, it will bring up the cost of your product a lot. So that's why typically you'll use those at like smaller percentages. So you still get the benefits, but it's not bring up the cost of your product too much. Actives. I already talked about these before, but I want to mention more. Most actives can be a bit advanced to work with. Ingredients like alpha hydroxy acids, beta hydroxy acid, kojic acid, vitamin C, retinol, a lot of these ingredients need to be used in specific pH levels or formulated with specifically, and those are more advanced to use. So some ingredients like those could use an entire video to talk about. So that's why I'm not going to touch on all those ingredients. Luckily though, there are a lot of actives that are easy to use, like niacinamide, panthenol, vitamin E, hyaluronic acid, ceramides. But the main thing I want you to remember is to always purchase your ingredients from cosmetic ingredient suppliers. And make sure you're reading the formulating guidelines and any other literature provided by the seller. The literature, formulating guidelines, it will explain to you almost everything you need to know on how to formulate with that ingredients. They'll mention if it's heat sensitive, how to store it, what pH it needs to be formulated in, if it's oil soluble or water soluble, and again, just simply how to formulate with it, like how to get it to dissolve, how to mix it in. It just tells you mostly everything you need to know. So make sure you read all the literature when you see it's there. It's super important. Humectants, emollients, and occlusives. So I have an entire video dedicated to talking about this topic, so I don't want to repeat myself again. But if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend watching it. I mean, I said at the beginning, go watch the entire Formulating for Beginners series before watching this one. It's important to understand all that information. The TLDR is basically humectants hydrate the skin, emollients moisturize the skin, and occlusives lock moisture into the skin. When all three of these are used together, you're able to properly hydrate and moisturize your skin, and you won't end up with like dry, flaky skin. So that's why all three of those are super important. Examples of humectants is glycerin, hyaluronic acid, propanediol, propylene glycol, urea, sorbitol, alpha hydroxy acids. That's just to name a few. Examples of emollients: jojoba oil, olive oil, coconut oil, hemp seed oil, sunflower oil. Emollient esters like caprylic capric triglyceride, isopropyl myristate, cocoa caprylate, C12-15 alkyl benzoate, ethyl hexyl palmitate, squalane, dimethicone, cyclomethicone, cocoa butter, shea butter. The list can go on and on. Examples of occlusives: petroleum jelly, mineral oil, lecithin, lanolin, cetyl alcohol, stearic acid, capric triglyceride, squalane, and waxes like beeswax, candela wax, sunflower wax. Again, the list can go on and on. And as you can see, some ingredients can be both like a humectant and an emollient, or an emollient and an occlusive. So not all ingredients are just considered one. Emollient esters. It is important to keep in mind what a serum is. This is usually a more lightweight, more aqueous, water-containing product. So typically not a lot of like oils, like emollients and occlusives are used in serums. They're heavily humectant based, but they can include emollients and occlusives, but not heavy ones like petroleum jelly and mineral oil. You'll notice ingredients like caprylic capric triglyceride and squalane are very popular in serums. These are emollient esters. I've talked about these in past videos in depth, and they're extremely popular in the formulating world. So that's why they're important to understand. They are similar to plant oils, but they are more lightweight and they absorb in the skin much faster. They also have a much longer shelf life compared to plant oils, which is typically why they are used in commercial products. They are also considered oil-free. So when you see an oil-free moisturizer, it's using emollient esters instead of plant oils. Things like caprylic capric triglyceride, squalane, cocoa caprylate, C12-15 alkyl benzoate, those are all emollient esters. Botanical extracts. I think adding in botanical extracts is one of the funnest parts about formulating. If you've ever shopped for botanical extracts online, then you would know how overwhelming it is because there's so many and you want to buy them all. There are so many different ones out there and they are all claiming to have such wonderful benefits. It does make you want to just use all of them and add every single extract into your product, but keep in mind that there is a limit to how many botanical extracts you can add into your serum. Adding too many botanical extracts in your serum can actually make your product spoil faster. And in my experience, it can mess up the sensory feel of your product. It can just make it feel more tacky sometimes. You may see that products on the market might have a long list of different botanical extracts, but that's because they're using them at a percentage lower than 1%, probably like 0.1, 0.2%. So if you are wanting to use a bunch of different botanical extracts, use them at a really small percentage. Don't be using them at like 2%. Personally, in my opinion, I wouldn't go over probably like 10% botanical extract in your formula. And even then that might be a bit too much. I normally just pick 2 and I use them both at like 2%, but that's just my own personal opinion. So here's like a short list of different botanical extracts and their benefits just for you to, I don't know, get some inspiration, I guess. Preservatives. This one is the most important ingredient to add into your product. Where there is water, there is life. So since your product is water-based, you need to add in a preservative. So quickly, I just want to go over a list of different preservatives you can use. I'm not going to touch on them very long at all. The main one I really want to talk about is Liquid Dermal Plus. This is the best preservative for beginners. It's so easy to use. All you do is add just a drop, however much you need, into your water and it mixes in perfectly. Most preservatives don't mix right into water. You have to mix it with something else first to get it to mix in the water. So if you are a beginner and you're new to formulating, I highly recommend getting Liquid Dermal Plus and using that to formulate with for maybe like a year or so you can learn how to formulate without having to worry about your preservative. In my experience, using other preservatives can cause random issues in your formula. It can cause it to destabilize, it can cause it to separate, it can cause it to go off faster. I just really love Liquid Dermal Plus. It makes formulating at home just so much easier and less of a headache. So I highly recommend getting Liquid Dermal Plus. Use it at 0.5%. It has a small suggested usage rate, and it's so easy to find. Most suppliers sell it. Now, I do know Liquid Dermal Plus isn't available in every country, so my second recommendation for beginners is actually Euxil PE 9010. I don't know, I'm pretty sure it has other names sold from other suppliers, but the inky name is phenoxyethanol and ethyl hexyl glycerin. But I think this is the second most easiest preservative to use in my opinion. The suggested usage rate is 0.5 to 1%. It's clear, colorless. It can be used up to a pH of 12, and it's kind of soluble in water. I noticed if I just mix it with glycerin, propanediol, or propylene glycol first, it mixes perfectly fine into water. That's why I think it's the second most easiest to use, because a lot of these other preservatives need to be mixed with a solubilizer like polysorbate 80 to get it to mix in the water. Also, Euxil PE 9010 is paraben and formaldehyde free. It's a common one that a lot of people like, and I see this preservative in a lot of commercial products. The rest of these preservatives I'm not going to talk about long. All the information will be on the screen, but there is Optifin Plus. This is paraben and formaldehyde free. Pause to read more. Euxil K903. This is EcoCert and natural. Pause to read more. I actually really do like this EcoCert preservative. It's probably one of my favorite EcoCert preservatives. Then there's Euxil K900. This again is one of my favorites, natural and EcoCert preservatives. Pause to read more. And lastly, Tri-State Eco. This is also natural and EcoCert. Pause to read more. The last thing I want to touch on before we start formulating some serums is emulsified serums. So emulsified serums, I don't want to talk about for long, because first off, this video has gotten too long, but secondly, I've already covered all the information you need to know on how to make an emulsified serum. I have a whole series about how to make emulsions. It's part of my Formulating for Beginners series. So if you've watched that series, you've seen the emulsion series, and it's an in-depth video on how to make emulsions. And I also have a 40-minute in-depth video on how to make body milks. And if you combine all the information in both of those videos, that's essentially how you make an emulsified serum. An emulsified serum is a thin emulsion like a body milk. And again, if you watch my in-depth video on how to make body milks, that's how you make an emulsified serum. It's all about marketing and how you market a product. So if you take a thin, like emulsified body lotion and you add some actives in it, you have an emulsified serum. Because emulsified serum is just a thin lotion with actives to target whatever skin concern you have. An emulsified serum is essentially a small amount of waxy emulsifier like Retamulse SCG, and most likely paired with a polymer like Sepimax Zen or Sepinove EMT, some kind of polymer that works as an emulsifier. And you blend up the oil phase with whatever oil you want along with those ingredients I mentioned, and water in 2 separate phases, mix them together, blend with an immersion blender, and then you have an emulsion. It's the same way you make a lotion, but just a really thin lotion. And then you add all your actives and stuff at the end during the cool down phase. That is an emulsified serum. And I will be showing you guys how to make an emulsified serum, but it will be over on my Patreon. So my Patreon, I post 2 bonus videos a month. This month, I'll be posting 2 bonus serum formulas that go right along with this video. The emulsified milky serum will be one of the formulas, and the other formula will be a bakuchiol and retinol serum for like mature skin. Both of those formulas will be over on Patreon. So check that out if you guys want to see that. So for this portion of the video, we're actually going to be making 3 different serums. First one we're going to be making is a ultra moisturizing ceramide serum. Again, if you don't understand percents and how to transfer a formula into a recipe, please go watch my Formulating for Beginners series. It will explain to you guys how to do that. So I'm making a 100-gram batch. And I'm starting with 81.3 grams of distilled water with 2 grams of DL-panthenol along with 0.1 grams of aloe vera powder 100 times. So this is like a concentration of aloe vera that's been made into a powder. So just mix those 2 powdered ingredients together into the water until they fully dissolve. Now I added in 3 grams of ceramide complex. I got this from formulatorsampleshop.com. It'll act like it doesn't want to mix in, but just keep mixing and it will fully mix in. It is water soluble. It just has issues mixing into the water. Then I added in 2 grams of royal jelly extract. And all my extracts are water soluble, by the way. And then 0.5 grams of Liquid Dermal Plus, which is the preservative, and mix that all together. And then we're going to work on phase B, which is a separate container of 5 grams of glycerin mixed with 5 grams of propanediol, and then 0.1 grams of ultra low molecular weight hyaluronic acid. So this hyaluronic acid will not thicken my serum. So mix the hyaluronic acid together with the humectants, and then you can set that to the side, go back to your phase A, and pour your phase B, which is the hyaluronic acid and the humectants, into phase A and mix. Now we're moving on to phase C, and phase C is just the Aristoflex AVC. So I'm sprinkling 1 gram of Aristoflex AVC on top of this product, and then I'm just going to blend with my immersion blender. And again, like I said, some of these are sensitive to electrolytes, but this still worked even though it had aloe vera in it. And again, that's why you always need to experiment to see if it ends up working. And there you go. Now you have this gorgeous, thickened, ultra moisturizing ceramide serum. Now, of course, with every product, I always recommend checking the pH. The natural pH of this product was 5.3. Perfectly fine. All my ingredients are active in that pH, so I'm gonna keep it there. And I use these 1 ounce treatment pump bottles. I'll link to some similar ones down below on Amazon. And then you have this gorgeous ceramide serum in the end. Honestly, I love this serum. I think this is one of my favorite ones that I made. Honestly, it's really hard to pick which one's my favorite because I really like all the formulas I came up with, but I am a big fan of this one. But also, I'm just a huge fan of like ultra hydrating type of products because my skin is so dry. So make sure you comment down below which one of these are your favorite. All right, now moving on to the next serum we're gonna be making. This is a brightening serum. This formula might look a little similar to a past formula I've done, but it is different. So let's get into it. We're making a 100 gram batch, starting with phase A, of course. And I'm adding in 84 grams of distilled water, followed by 5 grams of glycerin, then 2 grams of licorice extract. This is a botanical extract that's great for brightening the skin. Then 2 grams of green tea extract. This is an antioxidant. Then 1 gram of NAG. This ingredient is so underrated. I never hear anybody talk about it, but it's personally my favorite brightening ingredient because it mixes into the product so well. It's so easy to formulate with. I highly recommend looking into it. But you just want to mix that ingredient in until it fully dissolves. Then moving on, we're adding in 2 grams of niacinamide. This also will help create an even complexion on the skin as well. And then 2 grams of D-L-panthenol. This is a humectant, so it'll help hydrate the skin. And just mix those in until they fully dissolve. Then 0.5 grams of Liquidermal Plus, which is our preservative. And now it's time for the gelling agent. We're gonna be using Sepamax Zen. So just sprinkle 0.5 grams of the Sepamax Zen on top of your watery solution. Cover it with some plastic wrap and just let it sit for a few hours. I let mine sit overnight, so I'm not sure how long it'll take, but by the next day, you'll have a thick gel layer on top. Just mix it in and you'll end up with a gorgeous, clear gel. Again, I said this before, it'll be one of the most gorgeous, clear gels you've ever seen. That's how you'll know it's ready. So now moving on to the next phase, these are the oil-soluble ingredients. I'm adding in 0.5 grams of tetrahexyl decyl ascorbate. So this is a much more stable version of vitamin C. And I formulate with this ingredient all the time. It's one of my favorite ingredients that's a must-have in my collection. It is expensive, but you only need a small amount of it. And it's much more stable than traditional vitamin C's. So that's why I recommend home crafters formulating with this version of vitamin C. I personally love it. And then I added in 0.5 grams of vitamin E. And you'll notice as soon as all these get mixed in, we end up with like a opaque, like milky type of consistency. And that's because these are oil soluble. So we have like this light emulsion going on. And the Sepamax Zen works as an emulsifier. So that's what's blending the oil and water together. And then in the end, you want to make sure you check and adjust the pH. This vitamin C does need to be in a pH below 6. So if your product has a pH a little bit above 6, you want to make sure you lower the pH a bit with a 50% citric acid solution dissolved in 50% distilled water. If you don't know how to adjust the pH, then go check out my video all about how to adjust the pH. If you watch my Formulating for Beginners series, you should know how. So make sure the pH is anywhere between 4.5 and 5.5. Mine came out to 6, so you will have to make sure you lower the pH a bit. Again, I just poured mine into a 1 ounce treatment pump. I'll have these bottles linked down below along with all the equipment and tools I used in this video. Actually, I might not be able to link to all the ingredients because there's so many ingredients used in this video. I might run out of room in my description box. I run out of room in my description box with almost every video I post. So what I'll actually do is link down below to my website, TaraLeeSkincare.com. to a specific page where I have a list of different suppliers where you can buy your ingredients from. It's organized into different countries as well, depending on where you live. And I'll link to that because I won't be able to individually link to all these ingredients. There won't be enough space for me to do that in the description box. I apologize, but all the equipment will be linked down below. But again, I love the serum. The consistency just came out perfect. All these formulas I really, really like, and I recommend you guys trying them out and letting me know which one's your favorite because I can't really choose. It really just depends on what my skin's looking for that day. But this one I love because I have a dark spot underneath my eye now that I recently noticed, so we're targeting that bad boy. Get rid of him. We don't want him here. All right, now moving on, we're gonna be making this exfoliating serum with fruit acid. The perk of this is that we don't have to use lactic acid or glycolic acid or salicylic acid. All those ingredients are harder to formulate with, so I wouldn't recommend those for a beginner. But if you want the benefits of like exfoliation on your skin, then fruit acid complex is a great ingredient to try out. It's a blend of different botanical extracts that supposedly help exfoliate the skin. So I recommend looking into that if you're interested. I personally really like it. And again, I just think it's perfect for beginners. We're making a 100-gram batch again, starting with phase A. You guys could have guessed that. And I'm adding in 81.5 grams of distilled water, followed by 5 grams of the fruit acid complex. And I purchased mine from Formulator Sample Shop, but I noticed it's sold on a lot of other websites as well. And then I added in 2 grams of willow bark extract. This extract also claims to have some exfoliating benefits, so that's why I added that in. And then I added in 2 grams of niacinamide, and I mixed that in until it fully dissolved, followed by 0.5 grams of Liquid Dermal Plus, which is the preservative. And that is it for phase A. So set that to the side and grab another container for phase B. So I have 8 grams of propanediol in this bowl already, and I'm gonna add in 1 gram of Soligum AX. Like I said before, you want to use Soligum the same way you would use xanthan gum since it actually does contain xanthan gum. So it needs mixed with propanediol or glycerin or propylene glycol first before adding it into your water phase. So make sure the Soligum and your propanediol is all well combined. You could use glycerin here instead of propanediol if you would like. And then once that's all combined, go back to your phase A. And I actually use my magnetic stir. That's what that white bean is that I just put in the beaker, and my magnetic stir just automatically mixes for me, so I don't have to mix it. So I just had the solution mixing as I poured phase B into phase A, and you should instantly get a light thickened gel. Obviously, if you want it thicker, you can add in more Soligum, but I didn't want mine too thick. So I got this nice, lightly thickened viscosity, and I think it's perfect. The natural pH of this product is a little lower. Mine is at 4.22, but that's normal. This is because of the fruit acid complex. So you want to make sure the pH stays anywhere between like 3.5 to 4.5, but it'll probably naturally fall anywhere between like 4 to 4.5. But yeah, that is the finished exfoliating serum. I think the serum turned out great. I am so happy with the way all of these turned out. And I really hope you guys go over to my Patreon and check out my other 2 serums I made, which is a bakuchiol and retinol serum. It's made with pure bakuchiol as well. It's not the diluted oil version of bakuchiol. It's pure bakuchiol. And then a retinol liposome mixed together in a serum that's perfect for mature skin. And then the other serum is a milky serum that's made with a different method than these serums. So go over to my Patreon, check those out. Also, don't forget Joseph's Lab is creating content to go right along with my video. Over on Patreon, Joseph's Lab will be sharing 2 different serum formulas along with a scalp serum formula. They're also going to go in depth on the topic of blending different gums to get different sensory feels. So make sure you check out Joseph's Lab's content over on Patreon. And again, I'll have 2 more bonus formulas over on Patreon that goes right along with my video. So don't be sad you're not done here. There is tons more serum content that Joseph's Lab and I have created together over on our Patreon. So go check that out. Also, don't forget Joseph's Lab has content over on their Instagram. Go support them over on Instagram. That is free. And don't forget, over on josephslab.com, you are able to get one-on-one consultations, formulation revision advice, and you are able to have Joseph's Lab help you create a custom formula with any specific ingredients that you're looking for. So Joseph's Lab basically offers all of the things that you guys have been asking me to offer. So yeah, go check out Joseph's Lab because I think they're exactly who a lot of you guys are looking for. It doesn't end here. There's so much more content. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later. Also, don't forget to go over and check out my Patreon where I post 2 exclusive videos every single month. So there is a ton of videos you can go over there and binge watch. For only $5 a month, you get access to the entire backlog. And for $10 a month, you can get a shout out for your small business. So let's shout everybody out. Nature's Farm Girl, Let's Blend LLC.com, Stardust Bath and Body over on Instagram, HempyGirl.com, ShopLevi's.com, Owl and Lily over on Etsy, EmbraceBeautyEssentials.com, Legendary Bath and Body, Astari Apothecary, Revega Cosmetics here on YouTube, ExoreBB.com, Pardo Naturals, Natural State Skin, thenatureandus.ca, nearcatelier.com. You can use the code on the screen for 20% off, earthandambernaturals.com, Shark City Naturals, and the rest of these companies are launching soon. skinbydavu.com, 7th House and Oak over on Etsy, at Black Petal Beauty on Instagram, and mycrownandglowery.com. Thank you guys so much for your support. Literally without the Patreon, I would not be able to continue doing what I do. You guys literally sponsor every single video, so thank you guys so much.